Welcome to the GTM Reset podcast. This is the audio edition of the salesXchange live show for CEOs and revenue leaders who already suspect that the standard business-to-business growth model is no longer fit for purpose. If your MarTech stack keeps growing, activity stays high, but revenue is still slow, costly, or unpredictable, this series is for you. Each episode explores what comes after traditional go-to-market thinking and what it means to replace fragmented activity with a new business operating system. This episode was originally broadcast as a live stream, so if Nigel refers to diagrams, frameworks, or on-screen illustrations, you can watch the full version using the link in the description. So let's get started.
Welcome back to the GTM Reset Live Show. I'm Nigel Maine. I'm so glad you can join me today. Episode 12. Sometimes I think it's gone really quickly, and then other times I think, wow, we've done 12 episodes already. It's like just quite incredible. But today is going to be slightly different, because this is about replacing your commercial operating system. This is kind of the crux, the culmination, the whole point of this. And one of the things about doing this live, and I've said this to lots of people before, is it's real. Now, of course, I could do a video, and a video would be polished and look great and everything else and so on. But the point that we're trying to advocate and communicate is that when you do a live show, the person watching gets to see the real you. You can make mistakes. You can fluff what you want to say. You can lose your place on a teleprompter. I'm not looking at a teleprompter just yet. This is free form, so I'm just proving a point anyway. But you see what I mean? So the whole point is that you're able to, as a company, communicate your behavior, the real you, to your prospects, so they can get to know, like, and trust you over time. You can't do that with a video. Doesn't happen. Won't ever happen. And that's why we do this live. So, like I said, I could choose to stop and start and go, oh, do you know what? I didn't like that. I'll start again. But we don't. And that's the point of this. And then when afterwards, I process this and I put it as a video. A video is a video. It's still alive. It's still completely live, and I don't edit anything in the middle, just the top and tail. And the same goes for the podcasts. So that's the first. I just always want to say that at the beginning, because it's important, because this is where I want you to go. That's the key thing. So it's about commercial operating, kind of replacing your existing commercial operating system. And up to this, I suppose, up to this point, every episode has kind of made an argument that we've looked at why B2B pipeline's broken, or why the tools aren't working, or why quota attainment is falling while the SaaS spend keeps rising. We've shown what the data says and what the alternative looks like. And what I want to do today is I want to show you and talk about what we've actually built, not the concept, not the strategy, but the actual infrastructure. And then I'm going to read you something that's actually taken me a very, very long time to write, and it's our manifesto. And it really is the clearest, most direct thing I've ever put into words, really, about why B2B go-to-market is structurally broken and what replaces it. I don't know. So take me about 10, 15 minutes to say, but I want you to stay with me on that, because it's really, really important. Because you'll either disagree with everything, probably won't, or you'll recognise exactly what I'm describing in your own business. Because at the end of the day, this is what we're all here to do, the best we can to ensure that our businesses are successful and so on. But before I get onto the manifesto, I want to tell you what we've done, because it changes the nature of everything that follows. And it's I don't know the best way. It's difficult to describe, But just go back. But what I can do is show you that. So over the past few weeks, we completed something pretty significant. And this diagram, I'm saying, basically represents the structure of what I think will be for businesses to come for the future. That's it. I can't imagine it being anything other than that. And this is where it's all heading. So it's not about new software. It's actually about joining the dots and understanding what's available out there. So the kind of the nub, the pinnacle of this is that we installed a full retrieval, augmented generation system, RAG, a RAG installation, on top of everything that salesXchange has ever produced. So that's the articles, the course transcripts, video transcripts, PDFs, methodology documents, absolutely everything. So I need to be quite careful here because I'm going to talk about AI, but the phrase AI system kind of triggers a bit of a predictable response. People hear AI and they go, "Oh yeah, another chatbot," or they think some content generator or something. They've people knocking out images or whatever, or something else in the stack, I don't know, whatever. But it's not that. It's not that. So let me just explain what it is we've done, and then why it matters to B2Bs. It's really, really key. As I said, RAG stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. And the way to understand this is a standard AI model is trained on knowledge, general knowledge. It knows about most things. So at a service level, yeah? It's got no idea what your business does. Doesn't know how you think. Doesn't know what your arguments are. Or what your customers actually need to hear from you. Nothing. And a RAG system changes that. So you take your own content, your articles, transcripts, documents, your IP, and you structure that so that when the AI is asked a question, it retrieves the relevant material from your knowledge base first, and then generates a response grounded in what you've written. So it's not making things up. It's drawing on your established thinking and your accumulated expertise. So the difference between a generic AI and a RAG-enabled AI is the difference between, I don't know, like a temp who started this morning and a colleague who's read every single document your company has ever produced. It's not a metaphor. It's a functional description of what we've now got running right now. So you could say, well, if you think about it as how a traditional librarian works, yeah. So you ask a question, they go to the shelves, find a relevant book, they open them, read them, locate the relevant passages, and then bring the information back to you. And that process takes time because the knowledge is stored in a form that requires sequential retrieval. One book, one page, one passage at a time. So now, if you imagine that all of those books are all open, I mean every page laid out on a table, and instead of reading to find the relevant section, every paragraph has got a digital fingerprint, like a numerical signature that represents its meaning. Very clever stuff. So when a question comes in, the system doesn't have to read anything. It just matches the fingerprint of the question, the fingerprint against the question that it's been asked. And we've got, on our system, we've got 4,590 chunks of content. And it finds the closest match in milliseconds and hands it to the AI that's asking the question. And some of it's kind of a bit over my head, but this is what vector embedding is all about. And we use Google, which is Vertex AI Vector Search. And that's what it does. And that's why retrieval is now instant and not sequential. So you go, okay, well, that's great. So at the end of the day, the AI is not guessing from general training. It's reading from your document. So your articles, or rather our articles, our course, videos, documents, and it generates these responses grounded in what I've written over the past a lot of years. And in terms of what I've written over the past lot of years, I'm going to tell you what we've loaded into the system. So the total content corpus, or the complete body of work, I can give you some accurate figures now, is 1.67 million words across 708 documents. And that breaks down the sources from salesXchange articles and web content, the accumulated output of years of B2B methodology and writing, our course transcripts across 170 lessons of the CPD program. I'll come to that in a bit. Video transcripts from our full salesXchange video library. Yeah, the PDF documents covering our strategic frameworks and white papers and so, and my book. I don't know if I wrote a book a while ago. So I wrote this book. It's set out like a dummy's book. So I'll show you the book, right? So there's the book. So there's the book. So I did this, I think 8, 9, 10 years ago, something like that, long time ago. But it's about B2B. So in this book, this book is, I keep looking over here because I can make sure that I've got the right, press the right button to make sure the view is the right view. So this book, 60,000 words. Okay, so here are the last ones I've got left. Okay, but what we now have on our system is the equivalent of 28 of these. So if this is 4, if that represents 4, imagine 28, me holding up 28 of these. And as I said, there are 60,000 words in here which are set up and structured like a dummy's book. So the point is that that's now become our instant knowledge base. And I kind of unlike where we were a few weeks ago, this isn't a partial index now. This is the work in progress. Everything. This is the entire body of work in there. Every article, every lesson, every video, transcript, every single document. And like I said, it's like this 4,500 chunks of data in different dimensions deployed on this Vertex AI in conjunction with, you have it on BigQuery and so on, which is that's the best way. So it's a massive database that within Google, and that's what's now queryable. I mean, 20 years ago, I couldn't have imagined saying this. I mean, standing here saying, actually, I built this. I built it on Python and Google Cloud, and what I'll tell you now what that kind of now makes possible. I'll come onto that in a minute, but to put this into a business context, a B2B business context, because this is what really, really, really matters. So every B2B company has a knowledge problem. So you've got people who know things. You employ people who know things. They know how to position your product, how to handle objections. They know the industry context. They know what questions your best customers ask before they even buy it. And they know what distinguishes your approach from your competitors. So you've got all these people that know stuff. Yeah, they know stuff about your company. And you like them and you employ them and you keep them because they help your company function. But that knowledge invariably lives in people's heads. Sometimes it kind of surfaces and comes, it finds its way into a sales deck, or someone writes it down in a proposal or whatever. But it's not structured, it's not searchable, it's not retrievable, and really critically, it's not scalable either. So when a person leaves, that knowledge leaves with them. So when you hire someone new, you're going to end up spending 3, 6, 9, 12 months transferring that knowledge kind of informally. And every piece of content your marketing team produces has to be briefed from scratch, or it's generic, or it's both, or whatever, And this is what most companies actually call. Most companies call institutional knowledge, and it's one of the most undervalued business assets any business can ever have. And so a RAG system changes the economics of that entirely. So you take you take the IP that your business has built, articles, presentations, course material, proposals, case studies, even recorded information and recorded conversations, and you structure it for AI retrieval. What you get is a knowledge base that any authorized user can query, and any AI-powered process in your business can actually draw from it. I mean, it's like mind-blowing stuff. And for the salespeople out there, let's go through this in the sales bit. Feature attribute, FAB, feature attribute benefit. What it is, what it does, what it means. So what it means is that it's a private AI that knows everything about your company, what you've ever written, what you've said, what you've taught, documented. It's not a generic chatbot. It's not a tool trained on the internet or anything. It's a knowledge system built exclusively from your own IP, and it's queryable in seconds. So that's what it is. I mean, what it does is when you ask it a question about your methodology, market, positioning, product, whatever, it retrieves the most relevant material from your entire content estate. I mean, it's just everything. And generates a response that's grounded in how you write, in what you've actually written. Doesn't make things up, doesn't hallucinate. So it draws from your articles, your courses, content, transcripts, documents. Everything now is anchored in your own thinking. It also powers every AI-assisted process for us in the salesXchange operating system. So when the system generates content, prepares a sales brief, or pulls context for a proposal or prospect conversation, it's drawing from this index. So not generic AI. So what does it mean? Well, for you, it means that your company's accumulated knowledge, the expertise built over the years, the arguments refined through thousands of client conversations, the frameworks that work, is now queryable. Your new employees, your new hires can access it on day one. Your content team's output is actually grounded in it, and your sales teams, they prepare from it. And the companies that structure their IP this way will now have the best way to put it is a compounding advantage over the businesses that don't. Every piece of content they produce reinforces that index. Every new document makes the system smarter. The knowledge base grows, and it's spectacular that knowledge base grows with the business rather than it leaking out of the business. I mean, it's a business brain, could call it that. So then we'll kind of put another layer on this, because the landscape has shifted. I mean, we've seen it shift. So, everyone's hearing like agentic AI and AI agents and MCP, the Model Context Protocol. So here's what that kind of is going to mean in plain language for all of this. Until quite recently, AI was a Q&A tool. It's just a question and answer. You ask it something, it gives you a response. Interaction ended. Each conversation was isolated. That was it. So now, agentic AI is different, because an AI agent can take a goal that you set it, break it into tasks, call up tools, retrieve information, take action, all that kind of stuff, and then it can check the outputs and iterate without you doing anything. So MCP is that protocol that allows those AI systems to connect to external data. And it's how you give an AI agent the ability to look at your CRM, query your analytics, and retrieve from your knowledge base. And basically, it's there to take coordinated action across multiple systems. So what that means for a B2B go-to-market is pretty significant, because the tasks that required a team of people, doing research, content production, prospect qualification, proposal generation, meeting prep, can now be orchestrated by agents that can draw from your structured knowledge base and act across all your connected systems. And I'm sure I'm so convincing, but a bit of kind of more validation, if you want to call it that. You've heard of YC, Y Combinator, and Andreessen Horowitz, A16Z. So they're two of the most influential voices in technology investment. And they're both saying the same thing. Agentic AI is the next major shift for businesses, not in 5 years now, right now. And Tom Blomfield at YC has documented point for point how the architecture that we've built for our salesXchange OS mirrors what he describes as the self-improving company. So A16Z are finding entire categories around this. So the institutional money is moving because the results are already showing up. You've got to think about it. So we're going to wait for this to mature at all. I mean, we've got it. We've done it. The data infrastructure we've described today, like the 1.67 million words of structured IP, total business-wide telemetry in BigQuery. And that's blended with Google Search Console and Google Analytics and the performance data. We've got email campaign analytics, LinkedIn, reach, engagement, and reaction data. I mean, that's not just a knowledge base. That's an input layer for a closed loop go-to-market system. You have to think about it. If you look at this, that says what it is. You can see it. So you've got the different component parts that we have within the OS, and it's closed loop. It's self-learning. I mean, it's what every business has ever wanted. I mean, it's bad enough trying to get employees to do things. Imagine you don't have to ask again. It's just does it. So I mean, so we're building our own content scheduling and performance platform. You know, we use other people's, and everything that we've got, everything that we've talked about is all operational, but we can see flaws in it. So, but to make it closed loop changes everything. Because it's not the done thing, is it? People have not been building around closed loop systems, and so if you're looking at the posts that are written, published, analysed, and rewritten based on what actually performs, you haven't got any kind of third-party tools, no dependency on anything, or some other platforms that hoping that their API is going to work or not work, as we've recently found out. I mean, just the whole thing. Our whole infrastructure is built on all of our own data. So, like emails, for example, get emails drafted from real market signals. So, what's resonating? What's the data saying that buyers are engaging with right now? You have to think about this. So you've got a situation. So you've been sending out emails, and you're not happy with the results. So at the moment, you just go, we'll do another one. We'll do some more, but I'll forget it. It's just not working. And then you do it this way. So you get the AI to understand what the market's saying and doing, and crafts an email accordingly and sends it out. And then a week later, it checks it. Goes, okay, I can see that wasn't so bad. We'll do another one and compare it and keep comparing it. All right, we've seen a pattern here. We need to change this and change that. And gradually, over time, just your emails, they start to work. I've just said this to you. Those people in the know that, whether it's GPT or whether it's Claude or whether you're using Whisperflow, you say to your AI, sort it out, would you? I want a decent email to go out to our list. And it'll come back and say, which list do you want? I've got these ones listed. I'll do it to that list there. Right you are. And it goes off and does it. And send me an email, a message in a week's time. Let me know how it's getting on. I mean, I'm stunned by it. I don't know about you. Yeah. So you're triggering it or you could do it by automation. Set up a routine in Claude. Go, right, I could sort this out. Do it once a week. So every output, every single thing that goes out of your company is informed on what happened before. Every decision is grounded now for us in our own data rather than someone else's benchmark. And that's exactly what happened a few weeks ago. I said, well, when's the best time to do this, this, and this? And I get these responses back from Claude and GPT going, oh, you need to do X, Y, and Z because that's what the good and the great say you should do. I said, okay, I hear what you're saying. Go and look at the BigQuery data and come back and tell me if what you've just said stands. Went off to BigQuery, checked it out, came back and went, no, absolutely not. What you've said stands because your figures and your data the percentages are far greater than any of the standard stuff that we've got access to. And bearing in mind, you can ask an AI, where are you trained up to? And some of it will say, well, up to December 2025 or January 2026. Wait a second, we're June. We're 6 months. What's happened? So that's what agentic AI makes possible when the data infrastructure is there, when everything's in place. So we're not describing some kind of product roadmap. We're saying what we've got right now on our body of work of all this data in this system. And this is precisely why the kind of the SX hub element enables for any B2B company that installs it. Now, you don't need to build what we've built from scratch. I mean, the infrastructure, the pipeline, the knowledge architecture, that's what the OS provides. Basically, you bring your IP and the system learns it, retrieves it, and puts it to work. So, we're talking about kind of go-to-market, but we're not, are we? It's not go-to-market. This is changing how your company, it is a commercial system because it's self-learning. You're telling it to go and do something 24/7, never sick, no holidays, no back chat. I mean, what's there not to love about it? But the companies that move on this now are the ones that are going to be running fundamentally different commercial operations in 18 months' time. And the ones that don't, they'll be competing against the ones with the same tools, same headcount, same costs, and wondering why that gap keeps widening even more. I mean, if you think about it, it's not complicated, but we're going to come on to that in the manifesto. Yeah. Everybody does the same thing at the moment. Think about that as I go into this next kind of phase, which is about the manifesto. So what I'm going to read is basically this case that I've been building for 40 odd years in B2B sales and marketing. Doesn't hedge, yeah. I'm just going to name the failure directly, right? And it presents the data and it says clearly what the alternative is. So it'll be about 10 minutes, I think. Depends how fast I talk, but it's about 10 minutes. And it covers 7 specific movements, if that makes sense. It starts with how we got here, history of B2Bs. I know I could jump straight into it, but I just want to give you an overview. The history of B2B companies that were sold a broker model over and over and over again with the same promise every time. And it presents the crime scene. Yeah, the numbers that prove that the models failed. From the MarTech explosion to the consistent failure to achieve targets. In other words, that quota attainment collapse. And it explains how B2B buyers actually behave and why everything the industry built ran directly against buyer behavior. And it describes the alternative, which is, ta-da, B2B, Broadcast B2B Selling. What it is, why it works, what the infrastructure actually looks like. And at the end of the manifesto, I'm going to point you towards the course, because the manifesto is the case for change, and the course is where it begins. So I would ask you, just for now, to bear with me, to listen to what this. I'm going to read it out, and like I said before, so we have these multiple things. We have it in writing. We're going to be PRing this. We're going to be communicating that this is the change that B2Bs have been waiting for 40 years, and is explained. So this is not a marketing document. So you can put that thought down immediately. This is an indictment. It's a 40-year forensic examination of why B2B companies keep failing at the one thing they can't afford to fail at, and is finding and winning new business. It names the culprits, presents the evidence, and offers the only logical conclusion available once you've seen all the data. So if you're a CEO, a founder, a revenue leader at B2B technology SaaS or services, and if you've privately suspected for some time that something's been broken and something's not quite right, you're not getting the exposure, people are not getting to see you, and think that something's fundamentally broken, just read on. And I think what you suspected is probably correct. So, movement one, first stage. How do we get here? Well, it started long time ago, with commission-only salespeople, low basic salaries, high risk was transferred completely to the individual. So the business owners that wanted revenue, but they wanted it at a minimum exposure to themselves. So a hungry salesperson on the road seemed like the best answer. In the UK especially, salespeople have always carried some kind of cultural stigma. Yeah, necessary but not quite respectable. Just Jack the Lad salesperson. Very different in the States. Very different. So we're talking in the 50s. So along came email, and the promise was immediate. I would say immediate. It's cheap. MarTech vendors told every CEO a database and a broadcast tool was all you need. Following that, pay-per-click in the early 2000s. Cheap traffic, measurable, scalable. And then gated PDFs, trading content for those email addresses through marketing automation platforms, which also promised to nurture those email addresses into a pipeline. And then you had that, and that was all part and parcel of the demand gen, lead gen, pay-per-click, ABM, that kind of stuff. And then ABM, SDR teams like trying to industrialize that cold outreach. And everyone knew it didn't work. So every single step across 4 decades, the promise was identical. New business, low cost, low risk. So the sales commission model was transferred, it transferred that risk to the individual. So every subsequent wave transferred a cost then to a SaaS subscription. CEOs were told, by very, very credible people, that finding new customers was going to get cheaper and so on, and they wanted to believe it because the alternative was that it was structurally hard and always had been, and wasn't anything anyone was selling anyway. So 20 years of marketing automation data later, the failure rate's not moved, but nobody talks about it, because admitting that marketing automation platforms didn't work means admitting ABM doesn't work and that pay-per-click doesn't work. And we're talking B2B here, we're not talking B2C. Yeah. So what does the industry do? It does what it always does. It pivots to the next new shiny thing. AI. So the bottom line is the problem was never the tool. It was the actual model. No tool can fix a broken model. So basically, you look at the kind of the nothing changed except the front door. 1952, for example, story time. Salesman knocks on our door, introduces himself, says, "Have we got 5 minutes?" So have a chat for 5 minutes. 2026, BDR sends a LinkedIn email, introduces themselves, and asks for 15 minutes of someone's time to do a discovery call. So 70 years, different door, same outcome. Because the person on the other side didn't want to hear from you until they were ready. They never did. So that's not a criticism of salespeople. It's an observation about human behaviour that has remained constant across every technological revolution the sales industry has claimed would change everything. Telephone didn't change it, email didn't change it, CRM didn't change it, marketing automation didn't change it, ABM, Sales Navigator, intent data platforms, even AI outreach, those kind of AI outreach scrape and spam data sequences, not changed it. Nothing. And what changed was the cost of pretending something else. In 2026, B2B companies collectively spend billions of pounds every year on an operating model designed around the same assumption that buyers will identify themselves before they're ready, fill in forms before they've finished their research, answer cold calls before they've decided they've got a problem, and respond to outreach from vendors they don't yet know or trust. They don't. They never have. And the data proving it has been sitting in plain sight for over a decade. So you could say the data, the crime scene. Let's look at and examine what 40 years of B2B sales observation combined with a decade of systematic research shows. So in 2011, Scott Brinker published his first marketing technology landscape, big infographic, 150 products. Wow. It's only 2011. By 2024, there were 14,106. By 25, 15,384. So statistics are statistics. That's a 9,304% increase in 14 years. And the line that got written was, "This is the largest peacetime accumulation of commercial software the world has ever seen, concentrated entirely in a single business function, marketing." Okay, so what did the pipeline do during the same period? You're not going to like this. It went backwards. In 2024, 70% of reps, of salespeople, missed their quota, missed their targets. The average quota attainment across B2B organisations fell to 43%, down from 53% in 2020. In 2025, 42% of B2B companies missed their growth targets entirely. And that's up from 32% the year before. More tools, more spend, worse results. It's quite shocking. So it's not a coincidence. But it is actually a structural consequence. Get tongue-tied there. A structural consequence. And if you look at people like Vendor and so on, but the cost no one seems to audit, like Xylo in 2025, the SaaS Management Index put the average cost of SaaS at something like $4,830 per employee. So apply that to your own business. I mean, there's lots of different sizes of businesses talking to us, so we have to pick a size. So go for a 50-person B2B company. It's spending about 190 grand annually on SaaS. Before anyone's done any work, A 250-person company is getting onto for 1 million. And Zylo's data shows that 53% of those licenses go unused within 30 days of purchase. The average company's got something like 275 SaaS applications, different applications. The average marketing technology stack alone sits at about 27 tools, with the top 10% running 10% of companies with 91 different tools. The average CMO uses about 42% of MarTech capability that they've purchased. That's 42% now. That's down from 58% in 2020. They're buying more, but using less of it and achieving less with it. And this is tough. This bit's tough. The average tenure of a CMO is 18 months. And the last statistics needs a moment of stillness, really. And stillness or sadness, both, I think. 18 months. So when it kicks off, take someone new on. 3 months to understand how the business works. 12 months to implement their new plan. 3 months to explain why it didn't work before being replaced by someone else who's going to literally repeat the cycle. So boards of directors, if you think about it, have become expert at firing CMOs. But unfortunately, they've not yet become expert at questioning the model the CMOs were hired to execute. That's the and this is where it becomes quite uncomfortable. B2B business owners who want strategic guidance turn quite reasonably to the respected names. So Gartner, Forrester, Cirrus, Decisions. These organisations produce the research that shapes go-to-market investment decisions across every technology sector in the world. Those same organisations receive substantial fees from MarTech vendors who want to appear on their quadrants and in their reports. Gartner tells B2B CEOs to invest in marketing technology. Gartner's own research simultaneously confirms that 83% of B2B buyers conduct their research digitally before engaging with a salesperson. And 75% of them want to remain completely anonymous while doing so, while doing that. And you don't have to look far. How do you actually buy? And then ask your marketing team, what do they think? So you ask yourself, think about how you buy, how you speak to people, how you engage and connect with people, and then ask what they do. Demand gen, lead gen, ABM, pay-per-click, followed up by a bit of telesales. So the technology that Gartner actually recommends is just to capture those buyers before they're ready. But the buyers refuse to be captured. Gartner knows this is true. The cycle continues. Check out Brent Adamson's, I just thought of this. If you check out Brent Adamson's last article that he wrote when he worked for Gartner, and it was published on Harvard Business Review. I'm sure it was Harvard. There's actually a copy of it on our website. If you read that, it says, actually, people want to read self-serve, self-educate, remain anonymous, and calculate the ROI before they even speak to someone. He wrote it, got it published, and then left and set up his own. He'd been there 25 years, left and set up his own consultancy. Go figure. So it's not a conspiracy, but it's just a system that's optimizing for its own continuation. Why not? Caveat emptor, buyer beware. But they're not doing it for your revenue. So you look at how buyers actually behave. Somewhere along the line, the B2B industry accepted a deeply convenient fiction, and that is that buyers behave like consumers. They don't, they do not, and they never have. So when a consumer buys trainers, they respond to brand advertising and follow social trends, make an emotional, personal decision from their own discretionary income. Feedback loops fast, consequences of a bad decision are pretty small. when a CEO evaluates new technology platform or something like that for their business, the dynamic's different. They're spending the company's money, not their own. They're accountable to a board of shareholders, teams. The decision might take months or years. Consequences of a bad decision, significant. And, critically, they don't want a vendor anywhere near that evaluation process until they've formed their own opinion and their own view. Our own course material says specifically 86% of prospects self-serve so that they can remain anonymous until they're ready to buy. And they won't speak to a salesperson until they're ready. And that can take up to 5 years. And that's in line, with the you look at the pyramid where you've got mission, strategy, tactics, and planning, and so on. If mission's 10, strategy's 5, tactics are 3, and planning is your ops. So, looking at 5 years of anonymous education, 5 years of reading, comparing, evaluating, watching and listening before a conversation even starts. LinkedIn, their own research confirms that 75% of B2B buyers want to remain anonymous throughout that buying process. Like I said, Gartner says 83% complete the research before engaging with anyone. Forrester showed years ago that less than 1% of prospects who entered a so-called marketing funnel ever became a revenue-paying customer. And now marketers, they don't call it the funnel. Well, they do. They call it the dark funnel because no one knows what they're doing. Because marketers don't know what people are saying or doing. They go, because we're not involved in their Slack conversations and this, that, and the other. No, mate, you're not involved in any conversation because they don't want you to know. But these are not fringe findings. This is the consensus of the largest research organisations in the world, repeatedly across a decade of studies. And they directly contradict every assumption which demand gen, lead gen, ABM, and outbound prospecting has ever been built on. Buyers do not give out personal email addresses to vendors they don't yet know. They don't fill in gated forms, content forms. They don't welcome email cold calls. When was the last time you got a cold call? Oh, I'm so glad you called. They don't want and don't appreciate reverse IP lookups, kind of identifying them as a trigger in some kind of BDR sequence. Oh, look, we know their IP addresses. Steam into Sales Navigator, or rather their whether it's Cognism or Candy or Lead Forensics. Let's see who that IP address belongs to. Great. Okay, now we've found the company. Great. Who would be the people that would kind of look at this stuff? Right, we've found him. Right, now let's go and phone him up. Hello, you're still on our website. Can we sell to you? You put the phone down. Well, mind you, you wouldn't even answer it because your gatekeeper would stop it. And even when you are forced to do something because you really want to find some information out and you get a phone call 2 minutes later and someone who's watching this knows exactly what I'm talking about. But that's the point. That's what happened. Make an inquiry, send us some information. Oh, you were on our website. It's like, so what? Businesses want to learn in their own time, their own pace, without pressure. They want to feel informed enough to calculate their own ROI before a conversation begins. And they will buy when they're ready from the company that they have come to get to know, like, and trust, and understand them over the months or years of that private evaluation. And marketing automation hides your content from those buyers from Google. Gated forms prevent self-education. And cold calling, pet hate, interrupts a process that's not even started, if it even will. So the entire model runs directly against the grain of how B2B buyers have always behaved. It's not fiction. If you're not a CEO, go and ask him, her. If you're not a buyer, go and ask the buyers in your company how they do things. This is not rocket science. So given everything that I've said, there is only one logical response, and that is to stop chasing buyers before they're ready. And start being visible to all of them all the time, so that when any individual buyer reaches the moment of readiness, whenever that is, from 3 months to 5 years, you're the company they already know. And it's not a passive strategy. It's an infrastructure strategy, and it requires discipline, consistency, and a complete reorganization of how the B2B company thinks about the relationship between sales, marketing, and time. Yeah? The core principle is simple. You cannot scale a business through one-to-one relationships. You can't cold call your way out of sustainable growth. You can't build a relationship personally with every potential buyer in your total addressable market. It's impossible. But you can broadcast to all of them simultaneously every week with the content that educates, builds trust, and positions your company as the authority in your space. This is a live show moment. I've got an itchy nose. This, my friends, is Broadcast B2B Selling. B2B. So it's not broadcast in that kind of passive sense of spray and pray that's been abused by all those marketers of pay-per-click campaigns, but broadcast in the kind of the original powerful sense that you can occupy a channel, you produce a regular program, you build an audience that chooses to return to you because of what your offer genuinely is, and it's useful. And you let that audience self-select when they're ready to become customers. And the weekly live show is kind of the spine of the model, like this. It's not because live streaming's a trend, but because it's the only mechanism that allows a B2B company to simultaneously reach potential buyer, every potential buyer in its market, deliver genuine educational value, maintain complete anonymity for the viewer, and create accumulating familiarity that precedes trust. A viewer that's watched your show for 6 months knows who you are, understands what you do, has evaluated whether you can help them, and has done all of this without you spending a penny trying to find them. And when they're ready, they'll raise their hand because that relationship has already existed. You kind of have to think about this. I mean, this isn't theory. salesXchange, what we've been doing, we've been running this model live for 3 months. 3 months, okay. So, according to Claude, it's 34,388 LinkedIn impressions. We're talking B2B here. We're not talking consumer related or influencer related. We've got our emails, 19,000 emails to a verified database. An average of 48% open rate. You think, oh, okay, fair enough. Double the B2B industry benchmark. What we've sent out via LinkedIn, we have had in 3 months 1,700. I've did on my information here. It says 1,761. It's wrong. It's 1,776 verified PDF downloads of ungated content. Think about that. How many downloads did you have on your platform, whether you're using Marketo, HubSpot, Eloqua, Pardot, whatever? How many downloads have you had in the past 3 months for your sales-related product or whatever product you sell? You have to think about that and go, I love this. I asked Claude through Whisperflow, Claude, how many downloads have we had? It tells me. That's That's just music. So our pipeline is building. Our methodology absolutely works. Not because we did anything, it's not some kind of clever tactic or anything like that. It's because we built an infrastructure that was aligned to how B2B buyers actually behave. And the funny thing is that I'm a B2B buyer. I've been doing this as a CEO, director, 40 years. 86, 87. Long time. I know. I couldn't possibly, but trust me. I have. So that's where we're at. So we've now got the fifth movement, which is the infrastructure that makes it really, really, really real. So any strategist could potentially argue for a different approach. What separates B2B selling from any other methodology in this space is that the infrastructure to execute it has already been built. So we have the salesXchange operating system, which is a 6-layered commercial infrastructure designed to replace the entire go-to-market function. Not supplement it, replace it. So talking through the things that we've got SX Reach, and that manages constant market exposure, social media, email, banner advertising. It posts 600 posts a month without any human intervention. All of that exposure, email, banner, social, drives traffic to live shows. This is the broadcast engine. Weekly live show. We've got, and from that we've got shorts and clips, podcast syndication, and the audience building mechanic at the heart of all of that is SX Connect, which is the pipeline activation layer you can see there. I just realised. So this is one of the things. So if I'm standing here, I now realise that I'm standing right in front of the diagram. But I'll turn it off for a second. So when you look at that, so SX Connect allows the prospect to complete a discovery form document. That gets processed through the system. It books the meeting, researches the prospect company, researches the prospect personal, just LinkedIn stuff, so it does what the salesperson would always do, generates and prepares the slide deck, inserts the cost comparison, and delivers it to the salesperson within minutes. And a full proposal document as well. Within minutes of it being booked. So the salesperson, because you're going to do it online, they could print it out and turn up, but they attend online completely prepared. And the prospect has already self-qualified. So you have to kind of put that into perspective, that if you are reaching out to a total addressable market, I'll just make sure that nothing's turning around, a total addressable market, you have to appreciate that your reach is going to be thousands. If we take a subset, if we say 10,000, and for the sake of it being in the UK, there are 212,000 businesses that are from 10 to 50 employees. There are 36,000 that are 50 to 250, and 250 and above there are 8,000 businesses. That's the total. Pretty much split down the middle, B2B and B2C. So if we took 10,000 and you said they would be our target market, the Innovators and early adopters represent 16%. So they're the ones that will be up for it to begin with for your market, which means there are 1,600 that you could or would want to speak to out of 10,000. And at the moment, businesses are trying to find those and hunt those people down one at a time. Needle in a haystack, 3 to 4 to 500 to 1 success rate of finding them in a week. Fact. This methodology, forget that. Broadcast to 10,000, invite 10,000 to come and watch it. Nailed. It's done. So after the SX Connect part, so you got SX. So we're looking at the top. So we come back here. How do I do this? So we've got reach, live. We've done the live show. Now we're down at the bottom. We're down at the bottom with Connect. We've just done Connect. Now we've got Ops. So if we look at Ops, this is what we call telemetry. So it's the commercial telemetry layer, tracking every interaction from anonymous social media engagement through to pipeline value and closed revenue right the way through, start to finish. Everything's measured, nothing's guessed. And then we've talked about before, which is Hub, the intelligence layer, which is a continuously growing proprietary knowledge base built from absolutely everything that's within your business. Articles, PDFs, published IP, structured data, everything. And RAG queryable at every layer of the system. And this is the tone of voice engine, you could say. So every piece of content the system produces draws from it. The more you add, the more coherent and authoritative. Everything that follows comes from that. And the infrastructure, the backbone of this, and if we go back to there, we're looking at this. It's a little bit smaller. Let me just put that on there. You can see that we've got this. We've got the infrastructure at the top here, which includes what we've got here. If I could just click on that, and you can see at the bottom the infrastructure. We've got Joomla, training, Notion, and our integration with our different scripts. So we've got 60, I think it's between 60 and 70 Python scripts altogether. The automation sequences, the content pipelines that keep the whole system up running without an army of people to operate it. And the crucial point really is the headcount comparison. I mean, for a conventional go-to-market model, you're looking at a 100-person B2B technology company. It's going to have 8, 9, 10, 12 people working in it, 28 plus tools, $3 to $4 grand per employee in license fees, costs, agency fees, production costs, and that kind of that CMO replacement process. So you're looking like $500,000 a year. Once you start looking at entire go-to-market teams, sales and customer success and marketing, but the OS could be operated by a handful of people, a couple of people on production, a couple of people on marketing engagement. The exposure works identical, regardless of company size. It's just the studio budget and the banner spend that scales with the revenue. That's it. But the infrastructure cost is fixed. And it's not subject to an annual price increase from 17 different SaaS vendors. And this is not a theoretical saving. This is the structural argument that every B2B CEO, whether it's 25 or 250 or 2,500 people, need to hear. This is really serious. And you kind of look at this, why is the timing never been better? Every go-to-market methodology that exists today was designed before the current AI era. Yeah? That makes sense? All of those are being retrofitted for AI. So whether it's spin selling, challenger sale, Medic, ABM, Demand Gen. All of them predate the AI infrastructure layer and are being, you could say, awkwardly adapted to include it. So B2B selling was architected alongside AI. Yeah, the intelligence layer, the content generation pipeline, the RAG-enabled knowledge base, the daily article production. These are not features added to a legacy model. They are the operating model. And this matters for two reasons that compound each other. The first is reach. AI-assisted content generation structured for search and RAG retrieval means a 4-person B2B team produces content at the volume and consistency that previously required 10 people just in one department. The exposure work scales without the headcount. And second is deliverability. B2B buyers in 2026 are increasingly using AI assistants to research vendors before they even visit a website. Yeah, Perplexity, ChatGPT search, Google AI overviews. They all draw on indexed, structured, opinionated content from verifiable expert sources, like generic MarTech content written to templates by rotating agencies, has got no author, no point of view, no depth of expertise. And so it won't survive in the AI research layer. Yeah. But content built on years or decades of B2B sales experience, grounded in live operational data written with a specific and defensible point of view, structured for RAG retrieval, is what gets cited. That's what gets found. And that's what builds your reputation. That makes a buyer, in 1, 2, 3 years into their anonymous evaluation, decide that you are the company that they want to speak to. You have to think about this. The window to establish this position is open. It won't remain open indefinitely. The B2B companies that claim the authoritative voice in their category through consistent expert AI native content in the next, 12 to 18 months will hold that position for a decade. There's your Rogers technology curve. The companies that continue retrofitting their broken MarTech stacks will watch their discoverability erode even further. So really, you've got two choices. The first really is to continue with the 275 apps, your SaaS stack at £3,800 a year per head, 53% of which will go unused. Continue hiring CMOs every 18 months and watching them cycle through the same failing strategies, just new vocabulary. Continue funding BDR teams to make cold calls at a 3 to 500 to 1 success rate. Or you could continue gating your content behind those forms, of which 90% of B2B prospects refuse to fill in. And therefore continue watching 70% of your sales teams miss quota while your marketing department reports impressive marketing qualified lead numbers that never becomes revenue. The second choice, is to stop. Stop doing B2C marketing in a B2B world. Stop buying the argument that one more platform, one more integration, one more campaign will fix a structural problem that no amount of tooling can ever address. And relearn how B2B buyers actually behave. Understand the model. You have to understand. I can't say this strong enough. You have to understand the model that you were sold was designed for someone else's buyer, not yours. You've got to build an infrastructure that serves your market on their terms, at their pace, with genuine educational value, and then wait consistently and visibly for the buyers who are ready to find you. That process begins with the SalesXchange course. not because you need a course to understand that cold calling doesn't work. You already know that. It begins with the course because the 20 modules that make up the B2B Selling retraining program, they don't teach about tactics. They dismantle the assumptions one by one with evidence that have been costing your business pipeline, headcount and margin for the past decade. And they replace those structured assumptions with a structured, sequenced, executable methodology grounded in how your buyers have always behaved. The operating system comes later, further down the line. I wouldn't say that you're not ready for the operating system yet, but you need to understand the strategy before you can use the infrastructure designed to execute it. It is the architecture of success. You cannot install a new operating system on a machine that's running the old one. There's a chap, an American retail pioneer called John Wanamaker in the kind of the late 1800s. He said, half my advertising is wasted. Half my advertising spend is wasted. I just don't know which half. 125 years later, with 300 billion a year in global SaaS spend, 15,384 marketing technology products, and an average 43% average quota attainment rate, failing quota attainment rate, the B2B industry has answered his question finally. It was the half that treated business buyers like consumers. So, B2B selling is the alternative. It's been 40 years in the making. It's documented in 20 modules, 170 lessons, and a structured knowledge base that's the equivalent in depth to a shelf of 28 specialist business texts, built from the same sources of a B2B company that's already has the articles and transcripts and recordings and PDFs and this accumulated expertise. And what we have now is all queryable by AI from day one. It's running live. The data is in the system, our system. The door's open, but no one's going to knock on your door. And I think that's the most important thing about this is that the important thing about the relationship between where we stand now in the course and the operating system is that the operating system is the infrastructure and the course is the understanding required to use it properly. And the manifesto makes this point in its final section. You can't install a new operating system on a machine still running the old one. So if your team completes the course and changes how they think about GTM, why buyers behave the way they do, what constant exposure actually means, how to build an audience that self-selects, then the OS makes complete sense. Every module of the course is mirrored in a capability of the platform. So Reach is the constant exposure section, Live is live streaming, broadcasting infrastructure, SX Connect is the pipeline activation layer, SX Ops is the telemetry and measurement function, and Hub is the RAG-enabled intelligence layer we discussed earlier. Talked about. And the course teaches the methodology, and the OS executes it. They're designed together because I built them from the same kind of the 40 years of operational experience, and that's key. So before I sign off, I want to give you a sense of what's coming up next. We are building an additional, we're not quite decided how we're going to do, but we're building a new site, a new website in Framer. Now, Framer has an MCP, so we're going to be connecting us to them, And the point of it is not just going to be cosmetic, because it's going to be built. It's going to be a live demonstration of the SalesXchange operating system in operation. So every element of the site will be connected to the infrastructure that we've described today. So when it launches, you'll be able to see exactly what a B2B company looks like when it's running its own system, rather than a collection of disconnected tools. So that's what's coming up shortly, and I'll walk you through that on the show. We've also got the course. We've got some additions underway, but the point is that we cover agentic, we cover MCP, voice AI in the actual in the documentation. So it's exactly the territory that we cover today, but structured as a course module that you take your team through. And then, of course, there's the data, how we're going to look at and see how that data evolves in terms of content performance and email analytics and LinkedIn reach. That's all sitting in BigQuery at the moment. And so we just want to let it run and just wait and see what it tells us in real time. And that's what makes it exciting. See what we're going to change, what it improves, what surprises us. I mean, we don't know. And that analysis is going to make for some very, very interesting episodes. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. So there's plenty to come. So join me next time. Next one, I'm going to take you through the course step by step. And I hope you found this show useful. The manifesto is going to be made to look pretty, not changing the text, but top and tail, it puts some images on there and a front cover and so on. Send it to a CEO that you know, who's already privately wondering, why on earth is our GTM not working? I'm Nigel Maine. Thanks for watching. And I'll see you next time. Have a great day. Bye for now.
You have been listening to the GTM Reset podcast, the audio edition of the SalesXchange live show. If this episode reflects what you are seeing in your own business, the next step is to explore the model properly. Use the links in the description to watch the full video version, work through the foundational documents, and request a private strategy call if you want to see how this would apply inside your organization. Thanks for listening.